financing historically has been the last form or last resort form of payment. So in meeting with a coordinator, and the coordinator kind of gets the sense that the patient maybe is wrestling with cost or gets a little sticker shock from seeing the price quote, and then they maybe bring up financing as an alternative. But most practices, due to the high processing fees as a result of the other lenders, right, have historically used financing as like, in the event they feel like they're going to lose the patient, at that point, would they then introduce or promote or endorse a financing option, right?
Good point. So last ditch.
Exactly. So rather what we like with Friend Media, with Engage, and these other sort of types of companies is how do we more be proactive, right, and more progressive with promoting financing at the outset, or even before they even set foot in the practice. You know, if you look at a typical plastic surgeon's websites today, to find financing or financing available is typically buried somewhere way down in his website, or, you know, some buried in, like, you have to get to about 14 links before you finally find it, right? Rather, what we're finding now with our practices that are doing the best with PatientFi and really in encouraging this monthly payment plan concept is front and center.
Hello, and welcome back to the Technology of Beauty, where I have the opportunity to interview the movers and shakers of the beauty business. And today, we are graced with the presence of the co-founders of PatientFi. Todd and Scott, welcome to the Technology of Beauty. Thanks for coming up. You are Orange County boys. You've come all the way up here to beautiful Manhattan Beach. Welcome.
That's right. And a beautiful day.
It's great to have you guys here.
Thank you.
So, let's start with you, Scott.
Sure.
Where'd you grow up?
So I grew up in Orange County, just like you did.
Yeah.
I was born at St. Jude Hospital. I think you were born at St. Joe's.
Yes.
So just there in Fullerton. Went to school at Michigan. Found myself after school as an investment banker. Made my way sort of through the finance ranks there. And then subsequently found my way into the medical aesthetics industry. And working at Allergan and Mentor. And Todd and I met back in 2012. And shortly thereafter, we says, you know what, we should start a business together. And here we are
ever since.
PatientFi.
Fantastic. How about you, young man? Where'd you grow up? Did you ever grow up, actually?
Not really. So very scary similar. I grew up in Orange County as well. I moved to the East Coast after working in finance here on the West Coast, and then moved to Connecticut, went to graduate school out there. And then lived in New York City doing investment banking similar to Scott, and consumer and healthcare, and kind of, I would say, learned a lot of the baseline skills that we use today, even in our current business at PatientFi, and then entered into the medical aesthetics industry for about 8 years, and then PatientFi in 2017.
Okay, so you both have investment banking as your background.
Yes.
That's right.
You're both from Orange County.
Right.
That's right.
You both were educated on the East Coast.
Right.
We both dress the same.
You both have blue blazers, okay, and dark hair.
Unintentionally.
Okay. And then you put together this very creative form of financing for both the patients as well as the doctors called PatientFi.
Correct.
That's right.
So why don't you guys tell us about PatientFi? What the heck is PatientFi?
Sure.
So, yeah, sure. So in 2017, Todd and I founded the business in partnership with Dr. Lou Bucky, who serves as the chairman of the company. And really, we got together and says, there's a better way to offer financing. There's a way that today we felt patients were being taken advantage of, that they weren't presented with the best mix of products. And at the same time, we felt that the providers, the actual medical practices, were being overcharged, and that they really deserved a better product. And then finally, there was no one really partnering with industry in being able to help them deliver products and in concert with financing to make those products feel more affordable and address really the number one barrier within medical aesthetics being cost.
So how is it better for the patient? We're going to take this. You talked about you improved on 3 levels.
Correct.
So let's start with the patient. How is it better for the patient?
So the biggest difference is, one is just on the experience side, it's a completely, the transaction is digital. It takes a minute to apply. There's no hard credit check with PatientFi. But as far as the interest rate and cost, right, which is, the central point, we're not a medical credit card. And I think that's an important distinction. We don't charge compounding interest. We don't charge retroactive interest. So a number of existing incumbents within the space will charge $26.99 retroactive daily compounding interest, which is really just like if you had a credit card and weren't paying your monthly bills. And if the patient doesn't pay off during a promotional window, it can be very expensive for the patient. And a lot of times the footnotes of which can be hard to understand for patients and also for staff to explain it to patients. So we've tried to simplify all that and do it in a way that was clear, transparent for everybody involved.
What do you mean by a hard check?
So when you apply, so for instance, a lot of people when they go into a department store, right, and this is the most common example, I think, and someone goes, hey, why don't you sign up for a credit card? You'll get 20% off your first order, right, whether you're at Macy's or Nordstrom's, wherever you shop. A lot of people don't want to do that because they don't want to impugn their credit or get a 40% credit score deduction because there's a hard credit check that shows up on your credit report. A lot of people don't want to do it when they're applying for a mortgage. With PatientFi, we don't issue hard credit checks for a patient to find out what they qualify for, which has been really helpful for staff to be able to present an affordable option to them with really no risk for the patient to, end up not getting approved, but oh man, I just lost 40 points on my credit score.
Okay. So Todd was mentioning about it being better for industry. How do you think it's better for industry?
So yeah, case in point is earlier this year we formed a partnership with Allergan around their Natrel breast implant product line. And really it's an opportunity for the manufacturer in partnership with a financing company like PatientFi to come up with a program that, one, can deliver a lower interest rate than what they're being offered today by other lenders in concert and support by the manufacturer. Number two is being able to provide a lower processing fee to the medical practice than what they're already experiencing. So for example, I don't know if many people within your audience know, but when a patient selects financing to pay for their procedure, the doctor is effectively subsidizing or underwriting that financing to the tune of somewhere between 3 to 15% of the case price, depending on which product is selected. And then finally is really no one prior to PatientFi was promoting procedures, your most popular procedures in the case of Allergan, like breast augmentation, on a monthly payment basis. Because most products being marketed at the time was a medical credit card. And these banks really didn't care whether you made the minimum payment or you paid it off being a bank. So PatientFi really kind of brought that forward in promoting a monthly payment plan for breast augmentation. For example, right now our most popular promotion is $199 a month for breast augmentation. It's been very successful and been kind of almost gone viral across our plastic surgery accounts, where they're now promoting on all their social media channels about a $199 priced breast augmentation.
So the third part of this would be the physician part, the surgeon part. And I assume that you're going to tell me that the surgeons are busier or they're making more money. Are there any other advantages to the surgeons? Is this resulting in doing more surgery for the docs?
Absolutely.
Yeah. I think I know that a lot of surgeons don't like to be compared to a car dealership, certainly, but I think it's something for the rest of the audience to understand where they're, when you look at the luxury car market, same thing in the luxury fitness market, right? All the manufacturers, in the case of, say, Mercedes, they're promoting a $199 or $399, or depending on which model you choose, out to consumers everywhere, right? They don't care which dealer network you go to, right, or which dealer location, but they're out there to drive and address affordability for their consumers and drive them into the dealers. That's where, when Scott refers to the product partnerships, where it's been incredibly helpful for the doctors, because with the co-promotions between ourselves and industry products, trying to drive consumers into the different doctor locations, and the analogy being dealers for car manufacturers, they'll see a $199 breast augmentation from Grant Stevens. Oh my gosh, I thought there was no way I could afford Grant Stevens, or what's the surgery price? You're a preeminent doctor. And now with being able to address the affordability up front, doctors are getting access, even the leading, busiest doctors in the country, to a demographic they never even thought that they would be able to address, right? And without compromising their price or reducing their price. So it's been taking a pricing model of the price as a monthly payment that's been extraordinarily successful in other industries, and saying, hey, this should work seamlessly for elective healthcare.
We just had a doctor share with us 2 days ago that he's been running this $199 breast aug promotion in concert with PatientFi, and that in the past 4 weeks he's had 100 breast implant consultations as a result from the $199 promotion. He's closed 12 of those cases, already performed the surgeries, and the average price of those as far as the financed amount, was somewhere around $12,000 to $15,000. And that's because they're coming in, they're taking advantage of the promotion, they're being sort of made aware that this is a more affordable option for them. And then they're upselling themselves into a mommy makeover or a liposuction or really additional procedures on top of the breast augmentation.
And will you finance everything or
Correct.
just the breast?
Absolutely.
Finance the whole thing.
Okay, so it's sort of it's attracting them, if you will, to the practice, and then they're upselling it. So
Similar to what car manufacturers do today, where they entice you with that low lease payment. You come in and you say, well, actually, I'm thinking about more of this model or maybe these upgrades, and you, with the financing, you can afford more.
Yeah, and the key point of the whole thing, and I just want to make sure that both you and the audience understand this, is where our approach with partnering with product manufacturers and driving patients in, the whole thing falls down if you don't have a patient-friendly product, something that if the patient understood every part of the financing product, they would say, I'm in, right? And but so there's really nothing hidden behind. There's no hidden fees. I think of companies like Affirm in the buy now, pay later space got their start with that same differentiation approach, saying we're going to do equal installment, very simple payments to the patient. And the world's changing, right? Sometimes people want access to a very predictable payment, something they can count on. And as a result, we've been able to have doctors now really push our product, know that they can feel good about it. We have 5-star Google ratings between providers and patients. So that's a key part of this, right, is building a product where the doctor is not going to face any potential reputational risk where the patient comes back and goes, you put me into a product and I'm saddled with all this interest expense I didn't understand.
Really, that's the hallmark of PatientFi, is our 5-star Google rated reviews that we take a lot of pride in. For example, Allergan did a ton of research and diligence around which companies should they partner with in terms of their breast implant product line. And they looked at all the major players. And they also did a number of surveys and field research. And it came back that for them, PatientFi hit across the board on all the marks, most importantly on customer service and doing right by the patient.
Well, that's key, because if there was a gotcha kind of financing where, they snooze and the next thing you know, they're retrograde, they're retroactive financing charges and so forth, or any surprise, that's going to affect the doctor's reputation.
Especially in this world, right, where the world's getting smaller. Maybe 15 years ago wasn't the case, but feedback that can get out to the world at large about, even if it was an inadvertent, harmless referral from a doctor, can be become an issue, right? And so it's an important point of differentiation.
I agree. Now, Scott, you mentioned some of the other packages or programs, not PatientFi, that have 3 to 15% hits to the doctor. I think that's the numbers you gave. Right. What does that look like for the doctors watching this, so the surgeons watching this, and for everybody? What are you talking about? Were the doctors financing these other companies, or what do you mean by a 3 to 15% hit?
So depending on which product is selected and offered by the practice, so the most popular product within plastic surgery is a 0%, 12 months, no interest type financing product.
How can you loan money for a year at 0%?
Someone's got to pay for it.
Yeah, who's paying for it? Is the surgeon paying for it?
So the way it works is on that 12-month no interest window, the surgeon is paying a processing fee. And that processing fee provides, if you will, the economics to the lender during that window in the event that the patient pays it off during the promotional period. In the event that the patient doesn't pay it off during the promotional period, then there is accrued interest associated with the loan. For us, it's not retroactive and it's not daily compounding. And we feel that's much better and a much friendlier type of product than what's being offered by all the sort of other players or lenders in the market. But again, the doctor is paying that sort of 6 or 7% processing fee associated with, and once again, that's across the total financed amount of the loan, to help entice the patient to say yes to the procedure and move forward with the case through financing.
So when a patient's paying $199 a month, that promotion you were talking about, doctors don't all have the same price for breast augmentations. You mentioned a pretty high price a moment ago, and there's people that do it for half that price. If you say $199 a month, how does that work? Do you just adjust the number of months?
Great question. So what we do is we develop a custom pricing matrix for each practice depending on what amount they want to get for their breast augmentation procedure within their practice. So the way we solve for that is duration, so the term of the length, right? So if it's much more expensive, it may be over 48 months versus someone that's offering at a much lower price, it may be over 36. And the other is some form of a down payment. So a lot of practices use some form of a non-refundable deposit, right, to put yourself on the surgery calendar, right? And that could be $500 to $1,000 to $1,500 is a way to, we use those two variables between a non-refundable deposit and the term of the length to dial in that $199 price for the practice.
And when you finance it for the practice, does that include the operating room and the anesthesiologist, or are they carved out?
Depends on the practice. Some will just simply finance the surgeon's fee, and some finance the entire amount, including the OR, anesthesia, and implant costs.
So you're agnostic to it?
Correct.
We're agnostic.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Depends on the practice in which they like to do.
In the state they're in, there's certain restrictions where if the surgery center doesn't take financing, maybe they don't want to, they don't take financing, they'll only take a credit card or check. Sometimes the doctor will have their own surgery center. It just depends really on, we're completely agnostic to it. Yeah.
How many doctor clients do you have at this point?
We have, I can answer, particularly within the medical aesthetics core specialties alone, we're about at 700 providers across the country. And a lot of that growth has come significantly in the last 12 months.
So if you're financing this, then you have to have money to finance it with, right?
Yeah.
Is this all Lou Bucky's money?
I don't think so.
You said it was the chair. Dr. Bucky, that was for you, Dr. Bucky. Where's this money coming from?
It's a good question, right? And that's where a big differentiator, right? I mean, we're not just a referral company from, a single source bank or what have you. We built the team and built PatientFi from the very beginning, the technology platform, right, as well as the credit underwriting. So today we have various sources of funding. Not only is PatientFi well capitalized, we have hedge fund, what's called specialty finance, hedge fund lending partners, as well as deposit-backed institutional partners like banks and credit unions. And then we also have a partnership with another very large national direct online lender. And we kind of cover different categories of the FICO spectrum, if you will. So it's a nice partnership with that company. But so it comes from a variety of different sources, and as we're growing our network and growing our origination volume, the hope is that cost to us starts to decrease and it starts to become a much more profitable business model.
When we founded PatientFi, we didn't want to be just simply a broker or some form of like a marketing brand for a big bank. One, because the economics are very, very small and insignificant and really wouldn't lead to the valuation that we felt that was merited to an opportunity like PatientFi. But second is it provides us the flexibility and the nimbleness that we need in the marketplace to deliver the approval rates that our practices expect. And we want to be able to deliver the highest approvals in the market. And so in order to do that, we need to be in control of the decisioning, the scoring of those applicants, and not have that sort of outsourced or beholden to a bank.
What are the criteria to be approved?
Great question. So we look at almost over 100 variables in an application in a matter of seconds. But most importantly really is the applicant's FICO score, is their debt to income ratio, is whether they're employed or not, their credit history, how they're performing on their existing lines of credit. And then from there, we're able to deliver basically an approved up to amount for the applicant in seconds, and then also deliver based on which programs are offered by the practice, which programs they're approved for as far as which products.
So is this a real-time?
Real-time.
So a patient comes into the practice, sees the surgeon, sees the patient coordinator. She's sitting there in front of the patient coordinator. Can the patient coordinator get an answer right then and there?
He or she can, but even better, right? What if I told you that the majority of our applications and approvals are happening before they even walk into the doctor's?
Is that right?
Yeah.
And that's where the big differentiator is, right? Is if I give Dr. Grant Stevens the tools using our platform to be able to push out products customized to his price, like breast augmentation, and push them out as a marketing and conversion tool for patients before they even come in to see you. There's a large majority of patients, and that's one of the big feedback differentiators we get, that walk in and they already approve for financing. That price isn't even a discussion in the initial consultation, which is rare, right? And that's been a huge benefit.
So how do they hear about you? How do the patients apply and hear about you?
Yeah, and that's almost always it's of course there's still the instances where they come into the practice. We give the practice different brochures and things that they can introduce financing. They'll hear through us both on Instagram. They'll see doctors do direct email campaigns. Again, big difference being is it's not just, oh yeah, by the way, we offer financing. It's a customized payment to the procedure that they're marketing, like breast augmentation. Patients interested in breast augmentation, wow, I didn't think I could afford Dr. Grant Stevens or any other doctor. And then they click on it, apply right there, they're approved. The practice staff gets a notification, schedule a consult, and the process is pretty seamless from there.
It's a big advantage for the consumer or the borrower or the patient, because many are wrestling with, they already have likely a lot of credit cards either maxed out or they're dealing with a lot of big charges. They don't want to deplete their savings coming out of this COVID era, right? Cash is king.
Right.
And so being able to provide affordable financing, even 0% financing for a patient where they can budget this procedure now over the next 36 or 48 months is huge.
Yeah, it sounds like it. So have you thought about partnering with other industries to try to get the word out? You mentioned that some of them are doing it ahead of time. They're walking in, they're already approved. Sure. And I was curious how they would even hear about it, and you gave me some instances. There are some companies out there that are communicating with patients or prospective patients or in-office communication. Have you thought about partnering with any other companies?
You know some of them, and we've talked a lot about that. And we have our partnership with Allergan. We do have some partnerships outside of even medical aesthetics, because we don't do just medical aesthetics while it's our primary focus. And it's been where I think we've made the most inroads. But we are actively right now speaking to other companies within medical aesthetics that aren't even med device product. They're not manufacturers. They are practice management tools, marketing generation tools, where there's a really nice fit. Particularly in the plastic surgery community, for our two companies to come together and create even a stickier product and a more effective product for providers.
Yeah, I would think so, for sure.
If you were to ask us, coming into this podcast, is like, Scott, Todd, what's your biggest challenge? Our biggest challenge, candidly, is how do we get the water to the end of the row and do it in as a most effective manner possible and as quickly as possible, because there's just so many practices out there that are not even aware of the benefits of PatientFi versus the other lenders that they're being offered or that they've been using for years. So really, that's our biggest challenge is how do we continue to get the water to the end of the row, and we can do that through our own sales and marketing efforts. But what we have found is through industry partnerships. These industry partnerships really gives us the springboard scale that we need to penetrate the market, raise awareness, and make certain practices, and more importantly, patients are aware that there's a better option out there for them.
Well, it sounds like you have two customers. You want to get the water to the end of the row with the docs, because you're talking about doctor awareness, but you also just ended that with the patient awareness. So you have like two rows.
Yep.
Right.
And they have similar interests for sure.
Yeah. And they converge in the practice, most likely with that coordinator is where that conversion happens.
Well, what about putting it in the patient reception areas in the different rooms? I mean, have you thought about putting it on something like Friend Media?
Yeah, that's a very good lead-in and relevant to what we're talking about. And I'll tell you is that I haven't been in the medical aesthetics industry, particularly for not as long as Scott has, and I've been kicking and screaming with brochures. And yes, we offer brochures. A lot of our practices use them. I don't think it was possible, but I really wanted it to be digital from the very beginning. I think Scott wisely said we got to do brochures. So where I find companies like Friend Media fascinating, right, is that there's no reason why there can't be a digital experience for product manufacturers and other companies. It's what the patients expect in every other part of their lives. Paper is expensive for everybody involved, and I always, a lot of times it'll be in the trash can right outside the waiting room.
Yep.
And that's where what the Friend Media guys have done and gals is I think it's really it's ahead of its time a little bit for healthcare, but healthcare is catching up, and I think that that's going to be a great opportunity for both of our companies to be able to do something very special to help patients convert right there in the waiting room, right? And be educated right there in the waiting room at the click of the button.
Not a waiting room. It's a reception area.
Reception area, right?
You don't keep patients waiting. It's a reception area.
Right.
We have no waiting rooms. There's no waiting for our patients. At
Right.
least at Marina Plastic Surgery, we don't have waiting rooms.
Yeah.
Only reception.
Brochures
areas.
in waiting rooms, friend media in the reception rooms.
That's right. But you know, when the patients leave or before they come in to see the doctor, and after they leave and they're contemplating it, there's other ways to communicate with them, and one of which is Engage. Yes. Engage Technologies. And you know, they were on our program, Lloyd and Michael were, and you've met with them, and that allows a drip-based methodology through text.
Yes.
And I'm sure both you guys have your phones on you underneath the table.
Yep.
All of us probably in this room have our phones very close to us, and if they're not close to us, we freak out, right? Yep. And then what's the way we communicate? Through text. Yep. We're tired of emails. We're tired of having all these passcodes, but with Engage and aesthetic innovations, we can communicate very easily with drip-based, need-to-know communication with video. Yeah. Have you guys worked with them, or have you any interest in working with them?
Yeah, so we have strong interest both with Friend Media, with Engage. There's a number of other companies out there that are of high interest for PatientFi. I think the issue that we're all trying to solve, especially for PatientFi, is that financing historically has been the last form or last resort form of payment. So in meeting with a coordinator, and the coordinator kind of gets the sense that the patient maybe is wrestling with cost or gets a little sticker shock from seeing the price quote, and then they maybe bring up financing as an alternative. Mm-hmm. But most practices, due to the high processing fees as a result of the other lenders, right, have historically used financing as, like, in the event they feel like they're going to lose the patient, at that point, would they then introduce or promote or endorse a financing option, right?
Good point. So last ditch.
Exactly. So rather, what we like with Friend Media, with Engage, and these other sort of types of companies is how do we more be proactive, right, and more progressive with promoting financing at the outset, or even before they even set foot in the practice. You know, if you look at a typical plastic surgeon's websites today, to find financing or financing available is typically buried somewhere way down in his website, or, you know, some buried in, like, you have to get to about 14 links before you finally find it, right? Rather, what we're finding now with our practices that are doing the best with PatientFi and really in encouraging this monthly payment plan concept is front and center, right? Front and center in being able to have floating buttons on the website. Hey, we offer payment plans. Hey, financing available. When on any breast dog, call, you know, give us a call. You know, click more for details. All those types of things. So whether it's Engage Media, Friend Media, or Engage, and these other resources are fantastic for us to help getting finance to be a front and center, progressive, and more proactive rather than the last form of payment today.
I like that, and I think patients like that. It's sort of like a subscription economy.
Yeah.
Instead of actually financing. If you think about it, we're all wired to subscription economies, right? I don't care if it's Dollar Shave Club or your monthly payments on your gym or your health club or whatever it is. But we're all kind of programmed that way. And if we can take the stigma away from the financing piece and put it front and center, and we have accessibility to aesthetic services or beauty services and can finance them, it'll make it more accessible and so forth. Which just reminds me, we're talking about surgery. Could a person actually finance things such as injectables or fillers or smaller items? Not these multi-$1,000 items. But what about cool sculpting? What about injectables? Do you offer that?
Yeah, we do, and the answer to that is yes, right? You know, we've done I think that's been a nice fit from the very beginning for us to, you know, we approve a very large amount, meaning you can finance with us and likely get an approval for a decently qualified patient for a mommy makeover and even upwards of $35,000 procedures. I would say where the business has evolved substantially, right, is being able to not just do a one and done financing treatment for a surgical procedure. Is how do we get patient Lucy or patient James to be able to, for the next 3 to 5 years, be committed to your practice. And a lot of those financing, or a lot of those non-invasive procedures are repeated procedures, right, that are happening every year. Yep. And you know, what we're very focused on is how do we not just make something compelling on a one-time basis? Is there's an opportunity for the physician to be very financially attractive for the physician, and also be able to put a payment plan in place for the patients for non-invasive procedures, where they can keep coming back and on a subscription Dollar Shave like kind of model that the And I think not only is that great for the users that are already using medical aesthetics, but there's a lot, as we all know, right? There's a lot of people on the fringe. The market of especially the younger population, it's sitting there froth and ready to come into the market, and they need something that they're used to, right? And something that makes it a little more affordable. And that's usually the door to that is through non-invasive products.
I mean, there's a lot that we can learn from other industries. I mean, look at dentistry. Before you leave your dental office, that receptionist won't even let you leave or check out without getting you scheduled for your next appointment.
Okay.
In aesthetics, it doesn't happen like that. You may come in for some Botox or some fillers, right? But they feel a little hesitant to like schedule your next time to come back because you've just spent a couple $1,000s with them. I think with a subscription plan, you begin to address that sort of hesitancy and you get them on a regular basis coming and scheduled for their next procedures, their next treatments. I think that's another benefit we would find from the subscription economy around aesthetics.
Yeah, and as a plastic surgeon myself, I really like that idea, and running the business that I am. I'm always encouraging people and my own staff to make the follow-up appointment in 3 months or whatever it might be to come back in and get their hydrofacial or whatever, their injectables and so forth. So this seems to offer a seamless way to do that. So, okay, now, you guys have both been in bankers. You're in the aesthetic business now. You're financing, making things better for industry, patients, and the doctors. I want you to look in your crystal ball and tell me what you see for the future, sort of 1, 3, 5 years out. What do you see in this business? This is the technology of beauty. You're in the beauty business now, even though you look like bankers.
We're wearing tennis shoes, by the way.
Well, I'm wearing flip-flops. So
I'm not flexible
I
enough
want
to
to know
prove it.
what you young fellas see in the future.
Scotty, you can
Go on.
give it a first shot. I'll handle the 5. You handle the 1 and 3.
Perfect.
And
so I think in the
usually what
next
we like to
year,
focus on anyways.
I think in the next year you're going to see companies embracing the subscription economy in a big way, financing companies that are going to do a great job in helping manufacturers, industry, make these products, these non-invasive, injectable type products, laser treatments, go down the list, cool sculpting, for example, feel more affordable on a monthly payment plan. And even baking those into a subscription type offering, I see that in the next year, and I see that in a big way, and I potentially see that where there's a lot of direct-to-consumer type marketing and advertising happening around that to make certain, once again, water to the end of the row, ensuring that these patients are aware that there's more than one way to skin the cat here. It's not just simply your credit card, but there's a lot of better options to how we can afford these procedures that on the surface may feel expensive. In looking 3 years out, I see more players coming to the market because this market's booming, it's growing.
Right.
I mean, you talk to any plastic surgeon right now, they're booked out somewhere 6 to 8 weeks. You can't even get on the calendar. And I think that's going to continue, which is attracting a lot more money to the space. And you're going to have more consumers that right now are just simply considerers entering into the market. My understanding is that there's only about 5 to 6 million people getting Botox treatments, right? I think in the next 2 to 3 years, you're going to see that continue to just boom. And these types of folks maybe not be able to put the black card down or have the Louis Vuitton purse, but rather they need some help in affording these treatments but want them. Mm-hmm. And another great example to that is, kind of look to what happened with Peloton. Peloton really was successful, but wasn't like breakout success in trying to sell a $3,000 exercise bike. But then they partnered with a company like Affirm, and now it's $58, and you're saying, what, I'd rather exercise at home on my Peloton and pay $58 than go spend a couple $100s at a gym or Pilates class or what have you and actually have to leave the house because trying to make exercise more convenient on your schedule. Similar is how do we make these treatments feel more affordable and more attainable and accessible for the larger market.
5 years. That was
I handled the first 2.
That was a very thorough answer.
Okay, 5 years from now.
Yeah,
he took 1 and 3.
Okay, so I would tell you that for PatientFi, and it was funny. A lot of people that we had worked with previously, when we started PatientFi and prior colleagues, that we set out to build not necessarily a financing company, and the plan hasn't changed. There's just a lot of different spokes in the wheel that need to go in place to be able to address kind of our overall goal. And what we saw is there's a number of product categories that we believe are getting well, everybody knows it's getting more accepted, more widespread accepted. The patient population is getting younger. And I think that, for the rest, it's not just clinically, how do we get more products to the consumer, but how do we make all of these amazing products that more people want more affordable, right? And where Affirm, everybody, and I not to go back to the Peloton example, but truly changed and others like it, like Klarna, and has changed the industry that people maybe didn't want to pay with their credit card. And people would be surprised if you give them a fair interest rate, they will want to pay over time if it's fair, right? Over a time, and be able to budget for things. And I think that you will find, and I hope that PatientFi is at the forefront of this, and it's certainly our plan to be, is that the medical aesthetics, and a big piece of it, especially in the non-invasive arena, could be priced in a way where it really expands the market and becomes one of the central drivers for the market. And I think financing has always been kind of, by a lot of doctors too, as by the way, as he mentioned, but also kind of not central to my practice. I'm more concerned about what's the latest clinical innovation. Let's talk about marketing, how the practice is running, the EMR. It's kind of been overlooked, right? And there's been a lack of competition. And I think that our product, we're doubling our volume every month. We're doubling our provider count. We can't even keep up with this, and I think we've kind of hit a nerve where I don't see this slowing down anytime soon, because there's a lot of people out there that don't know that they can afford life-changing procedures.
The best practices that we partner with, and I'll just say it bluntly, care. They care for the patient. They care about their business. They actually take an interest in understanding, okay, what can I do to better improve my offering? It's not just simply spending 18 hours in the OR, but really it's the doctor stepping out saying, okay, meeting with his coordinators, meeting with his staff, and really understanding at the end of the day, what is preventing that? What's presenting that obstacle or barrier to getting more patients to come in and convert and say yes? And these doctors, with their office managers, with their coordinators, taking a proactive role in working with companies like PatientFi, develop really good marketing programs, once again, promoting their most popular procedures on a monthly payment plan, promoting these particular procedures that they've been well known in the community for, but doing it in a way now a little bit differently, right? And using financing proactively versus just sort of like, oh, my staff handles that. That's just not something I'm involved in. I think we used this company or that company. Rather, it's the docs that really take a more proactive stance and continue to innovate within the practice to improve the offering to their patients.
I think it's a very good point. And I like you said it has to do with caring. I think that's a really good point. And I think that's a challenge for all the surgeons out there watching this and the staff. And it's a great call to action on your part, because it does make it more affordable, more approachable, more obtainable. So thank you very much. And I'd like to thank both you guys for coming up here and appearing on our show, The Technology of Beauty, and sharing your thoughts and your wisdom. And I hope the people watching learn something. And I'd like to thank all of you for joining us today on The Technology of Beauty, where we interview the movers and shakers of the beauty business. And today we got to learn about getting water to the end of the row with PatientFi, with Todd and Scott. And I want to thank you guys again for coming up. And I'll see you each and every Tuesday on The Technology of Beauty. Take care.